LCB file R114-09.
What about
Buonamici, it's an action item. We heard it yesterday.
For the record, Rob Buonamici,
Do a quick
Chief Game
recap,
Warden.
Board, because we heard it yesterday.
Basically, we discussed potential changes. We've come up with some alternate language. Under Section 1, we're proposing to strike "or otherwise," those two words. And then between "who" and "wounds," add "shoots" and those two words. So it would read, "Each person who shoots and wounds any wildlife while hunting shall make a reasonable effort to take that wildlife, including without limitation, pursuing and tracking it." We'd also have to eliminate the word "injures." I don't
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
mentioned that.
Which word, what was the last word?
So it'd be each person who shoots and wounds any wildlife, or otherwise injures would be stricken. So that's the change we're proposing there, and we're not proposing any other changes to the language as it was presented.
Any questions?
Does this have to go back to the Legislative Council Bureau?
Yes, it does.
If we passed it the way it was, it wouldn't have to, is that right?
It would still go back. This is a minor change, so it's not going to detract from the process.
Okay, anybody from the public have, Commissioner Cavan?
You'll adjust the wording in the header there a little bit to reflect the new language.
Correct.
That's just, anybody from the public want to comment on it? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission. It's an action item, and you've heard the changes he had in there. Has anybody got any questions of Rob on this? If not, Commissioner McMahon?
I just want to clarify, there's no other changes on the knocked arrow
No.
or any of that, right?
No, sir.
Okay, that's it.
What's your pleasure? Commissioner Howe?
I move that we approve Commission General Regulation 374 with the wording as Mr. Buonamici stated, the corrected wording.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to approve as submitted, as changed by Rob. Everyone knows the changes, and we have a second on it. Everyone understand the motion? If so, I'll call for the question. All for the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Next item we want to go to is Commission General Regulation 377, LCB file number R13809, Americans with Disabilities, Muzzleloader Accommodations. Kim Jolly.
Kim Jolly for the record. Again, this Commission General Regulation 377 is the reasonable accommodation that we need in order to meet the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's request and not jeopardize federal funding. And it's as strict as possible. It will be the strictest in the country of other wildlife agencies with muzzleloader only seasons. And just one last thing, the decisions that public officials make are not always popular, but they need to be made in the best interest of the whole. And as representatives of the whole state, I'm sorry. The furloughs and the 20% cuts are getting to be the talk of that. And we're already going to be risking state funding. Please don't risk our federal funding too.
Commissioner Howell.
Mr. Chairman, if we're going to move on this, can we say that we're going to make a motion to approve it under protest? Can we say that? In other words, we don't agree with it, but we're moving
It
to
won't,
approve it.
I don't think it'll do any good, will it?
Mr. Chairman.
Just to
Why is it
have it
blowing
on
the wind?
record that we don't like it, but we're gonna do it.
Commissioner Capurro?
Yes, sir, we've kind of beat this to death, but I'm going to make a final statement here in that. I'm going to vote no on it. I'm sure there are enough votes on this commission to adopt it. And the reason I'm going to do it is this: I can't wrap my arms around issuing a permit to a person with traumatic brain injury with double vision and allow him by himself to use a deadly weapon on the same mountain that you or I are hunting on. That was mentioned by Mike Turnipseed and several other people in the discussions in various things. I just cannot bring myself to that. And the ironic thing is, we're going to issue this permit to someone who can't qualify for a driver's license. So how's he going to get to where he's hunting? How's he going to retrieve? And I appreciate it, Kim. You've got a list that you say you're going to use. I think the commission should be provided with that list to show what are we going to do to implement, this sort of thing. I believe this is something the ADA should have stayed out of, because I think there are some things, no offense to the disabled people at all, but there's some activities that you should not be allowed to carry on if it impacts the health, safety, and welfare of other people. And I consider that's what this is. Now, I don't want to hurt the department's funding. For that reason, I'm not going to offer an amendment as I had intended to. But I am going to vote no, and I wanted to make sure everybody understood why.
I want to ask the director, on a scale 1 to 10, if we turn this down, what is the possibility of losing federal funds? Is it a guarantee, or is it just a 1, 2, 5, or on a scale of 1 to 10, from your ability of other states and with your federal, what do you think the risks are with the feds on this? Or is this just a threat like they were with highway funds? Tell me.
I think it's pretty high.
Give me a number.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I wouldn't mention, they already wrote us a threatening letter. We've had phone conversations with them. We're one of the only states that hasn't. They could very easily make I'm not sure I would, as a fiscal manager, I wouldn't want to take the chance.
And can we put in there that other restrictions on that? Or do we have to go, you have to have it renewed every year and stuff like that. We can put other things on it.
It can be an annual thing. We can report back how many people actually applied. The problem is that they set the minimum and we want to make it more restrictive. Then we're just playing a chess game. They come back and say, no, that doesn't meet in the federal eyes what the ADA accommodation is. Then we're going to be back into this back and forth. And so,
Can we, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, can we say that, using 1S magnified and add a claim in there and say no other powers will be allowed or something to make it a little more effective? That means they can't come back and say I want 3 power and a 4 power and a 10 power?
I don't think the Fish and Wildlife Service would do that, frankly. You have to understand, too, I'm going to be next Monday, actually tomorrow night, for a waterfowl meeting. There is a faction of people that don't want hunting in the Fish and Wildlife Service. That's just I see it in the duck end of the world, where you think, this is a feel-good deal. So, yeah, I think that the probability is pretty high. They could be very easy as a federal bureaucrat to say, well, if you're going to fight the national ADA, we're going to withhold your funding till you pass this.
Till we pass it, then we could always spend. Deputy Attorney New.
I'd like to offer that I spoke several times before we sent the U.S. Fish and Wildlife our letter detailing what our plan was, and this is part of the plan. And time is of the essence. We are the last state to take any action on this. And you certainly have a right to try to amend what the department has offered, but time is of the essence, and the department would be in very high jeopardy of losing their federal funding.
We had public
Commissioner
comment.
Wallace?
I was just going to say, barring any public opinion or comments, I'm ready to move on this.
There's public comment for just this item, I think. Don Cleveno? I was the only one specifically for this item.
You can vote against it. You can vote against it. That means you won't talk to
Catch it
Jim.
to get along.
I'm Don Cliveno, and I member Lakes Crossing Muzzleloaders here in Reno. Last night, the guy from Carson, the president, called and said, asked if I'd represent them because they have a shoot today, and he isn't here. And we discussed this, and it sounds like it's a lot of the same discussion that you have made, and I've read the minutes of our advisory board, and it was similar. And we've kind of around us have gotten the impression and assumed that if we don't do this, it's going to affect the funding and so forth. You know, it's the blackmail kind of. Is that what you want to call it? Something like that. But so we both clubs have come around to support the resolution or the recommendation regulation that has been proposed by Department of Wildlife. And we have our concerns the same as yours, I think, because one of the big issues is a matter of safety, and if a person can't see and so forth, what business do they have being allowed to, it's a concern of safety in terms of what could happen when hunting. Now Carson Club has come, or Eagle Valley Club has come up with the idea, well, maybe we can have something that has to be accompanied by another individual that ensures that the safety thing is taken care of, or at least addressed. Part of the thing too, Colorado, it said in our information, it says out of 26 applicants, they approved 9. Well, that means 17 people haven't been approved, and then assuming they jump through the hoops that Colorado has required, and they have authorization, or excuse me, they have a need demonstrated by a doctor and all that kind of stuff, there are 17 that were turned down. Now, does this mean that it's a relatively subjective thing that I've got a problem of an eye that can't be corrected, and maybe my doctor, he's a pretty neat guy, would give it an authorization that says that I have a injury that can't be corrected with glasses or whatever. But I shouldn't be qualified to do that. So again, is there a subjectivity? And I assume this is kind of addressed by Ms. Jolly and my Director Mayor here, and probably Rod Buonamici and so forth. But anyway, so our conclusion is we ought to go along with this, with some of the reservation we have. I guess maybe it was also decided maybe we don't have as we give and understand, maybe we don't have a choice. And so we want to be fair about it so that an individual can, but we also don't want people to be cheating and again, the safety issue. I guess that's our opinion, our view.
Do you think this could gather some speed? And how about the archers that are handicapped, and do they need telescopic sights?
Well, what if you're gay or something? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what on this, but we're a traditional bunch. Both of our clubs are, and we are kind of all for just let's say iron sights, black powder, and the works.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready for a motion?
Is anybody in the?
Thank you.
We got one more comment.
We had the Don Alt.
We got 2 more comments from the public.
I'm Don Alt, I'm the Nevada Livestock Association, and what we do in the livestock organization is one of our goals is to make everybody follow the law. Not only just the guy, cowboy out there, the hunter, the fisherman, the government too. Now, this, all you people on the board have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Nevada. This is a violation of the 10th Amendment. It's not constitutional. It is, it's extortion covered under Title 18. And it's, and, well, actually, there's a Supreme Court case that said that anybody that is involved in extortion on either the on either side is guilty of the same. So I know it's bad. It's a lot of money out there, but I'm glad it's not my decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Dixon, Clark Cab. I talked last night, Chairman Lent, with Commissioner Macbeth and with Commissioners Howell and Corbin this morning, which is, I understand all the arguments have been made up here, and even the arguments, the great segue that I had into this, it's time we kind of stand up for states' rights and other things. If you can point to me one of our legislatures in Congress that would stand up on anything with the words ADA written on it and have a backbone, I would follow you and march anywhere you wanted and fight this battle. But I can guarantee you, the only thing they've had a backbone on in this state, and it took them 23 years, and having Senate Majority Leadership and blackmailing with the president, was Yucca Mountain. We can't wait 23 years. At $5 million a year, we would quickly engulf anything we're worried about with our Heritage Fund. And to be honest with you, we don't have a choice. Right now, we don't have the wherewithal within our congressional delegation to fight this. We almost kind of have to take it as it is, and as pointed out, make it as restrictive as possible so we limit the number of people. We can revisit it, as Director Mayer said, we can revisit this again in the system if we have to make it even more restrictive if we find out that we're having too many things sliding through the cracks. But I think what Kim has put together now is a fairly restrictive thing. It's more restrictive than anybody else is out there, and if we find it's not enough, we can always add more, as suggested by Commissioner Capurro. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, let's bring it back to the commission.
one last comment.
Commissioner Capurro.
You know, I perhaps probably shouldn't have any concerns about it because, number one, might have a hard time finding an ophthalmologist who wants to make this determination with the possibility that this guy could go out in the field and kill or injure somebody else. I'd like to avoid that. I'm still voting no. I think that's the wrong way to deal with it.
Okay, let's, I'll accept a motion. We're having a talk on it. Who wants to make a motion? Commissioner Rain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I gotta preface my motion with a little thing. First, this is nothing less than extortion and blackmail. It is not one of the powers the federal government enumerated in the Constitution, and it directly, and I do believe also would hurt this, that's actually interesting, it's what I had in my notes, directly violates the oath of office to uphold the Constitution. However, blackmail is blackmail, and our federal government knows how to do it well. Glad it's on camera for that. You know, we currently have a weapon far more powerful and deadly than any firearm that exists pointed at the budget of this department. And fighting this, we are fighting the very government that we're supposed to be here serving. And now that it is clear that this is legal blackmail, and that is the clear understanding of myself and many of the people here, I move to approve this legislation as proposed, or this LCB file R138-09 as proposed.
Second.
You seconded?
No trigger?
You seconded.
Everybody.
For the record, since we have one person missing, I don't have to vote. I shouldn't vote because it's only 8 people here. So I won't be voting on it because otherwise it'd be a tie.
Correct.
So I'm out of it.
I doubt it'd be a
We got a motion and a second.
Just have a quick comment.
Comments?
I'm going to vote for this, but I'm only voting for the LCB file and the general regulation. I just soon seen a motion that was a plus or minus on this as to the whole thing in front of it. And I'm voting more on just the regulation than what we've got going on there. I just wanted that for the record. Thank you.
You got a motion and a second. Call for the vote. All for the motion. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Got one opposed. Motion passes. I abstain from voting since.
See, you could have voted.
Thank you, ADA, for creating a dangerous situation.
Okay, next item on the agenda, we're gonna go back to member items, announcements. Anybody have any announcements? If not, I'll, huh? No. Go ahead. If not, I'll have county board